It's just a public service announcement. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. H to the O.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another great episode of Pro Sports Takes, and today's take is a very unique subject. The lottery just happened last week, and it got us thinking about the future of the draft. It was pretty crazy to see that the Golden State Warriors just had one of the most dominant dynasties we've ever seen in the 21st century. But because one year their best players get injured and they go from making history and winning championships to owning the worst record for just one fluke season, that now they have a top 2 pick and can potentially just add another elite player. While these teams that have been struggling for years, the Knicks, are stuck with a less impactful player. So what can the NBA do to prevent something like that from occurring again? That's what our take is today about, is changing the future of the draft. Our proposal is something that's similar to what's being discussed or what's rumored in the MLB this year with a shortened 60-game season, but on a much larger scale. The take I'm making today is, I believe with analytics as prevalent as ever, the league will figure out that it's better for future draft lotteries in the NBA or the odds for picks in the MLB and NFL that they should take into account not just 1 year before the draft, but also factor in previous seasons as well. This will obviously have many ripple effects, but mainly if a team wants to take or deals with some unfortunate events and just says, fuck it this year, they can't just benefit from losing that one season. It has to be from multiple years, and it will make teams much less inclined to go that route, knowing it's going to take years on years to get the high draft picks it takes to turn it around that way. Everybody knows the way to rebuild in sports is by drafting good, and you obviously have a better chance of drafting good when your picks are high in the draft. That's how teams get players like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Kyrie. I can go on and on, because a team that was so bad the year before, they landed that high draft pick used to take that very talented player. The more competitive the leagues are, though, the better for everyone. Like, while stacked teams are good to have in there for the appeal of seeing the best players in one game, having teams evenly matched always brings out the best in sports. Leagues need to start ensuring that more teams are competitive and not going the route of losing on purpose, which has become more popular than ever because it's currently just too simple to pull off. Lose a lot of games for 1 year and land one of the most talented, young, and inexpensive players a team can get to build up their roster to a competitive state. But if the league were to take into account more than just that 1 year and change the draft order, or at least the draft lottery odds in the NBA's case, based on not just that one season, but a weighted system that makes this year like 50% or something like that to determine each draft order, and then have the other 50% based on the 2, 3, 5 years prior to that. Teams that really need a high caliber level player get it, even though they may not have had the worst record that 1 year, but they've had a bad record for a while and maybe just landed, the third or fourth worst record that year. And then they end up missing out on that high level player that could help make that team relevant again and competitive again. Like the Boston Red Sox, for example, just won the championship 2 years ago and have been winning plenty of divisions over the past 5 years. But because 1 year they fall off because of another rare occurrence, kind of like the Warriors, where this time their World Series winning manager got suspended for the season. And here they are with the worst record in the American League this year and a prime contender for a top pick, but they still have the talent in place to be very competitive after this season. Teams like that with these fluke bad seasons don't deserve the top pick or one of the top picks over a team that's been losing consistently over the past few years, like the Orioles, and truly needs that premier prospect to turn it around and really become a competitive team again. The whole point of an annual draft and making the order what it is and why it goes to the worst team instead of the best team is to even the playing field. Like, that's the whole point, and give the worst teams the better prospects to develop into a better team. So changing the order based on not just 1 year, but based on multiple seasons of wins and losses accomplishes the goal of that. and prevents teams from wanting to tank and really creates a more competitive environment going forward. So it's a win for the teams. It's a win for the prospects who now get a better opportunity to be a focal point instead of trying to fit in on an already championship caliber roster. And most of all, it's a win for the fans who get to see more competitive games on a nightly or weekly basis.
A weighted system definitely should be a thing. Like, franchises should actually have to lose money to get valuable picks. And is that fucked up? Maybe. But the leagues being competitive is the best thing for fans, the sport, and 100% the playoffs and battle to win a championship. The championship has to have maximum worth, and you want teams like the Warriors that did it correctly, drafting Steph at 7, even though the Timberwolves had the 5th and 6th pick and got back-to-back point guards and Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. Then they went and got Klay Thompson with the 11th pick, Draymond in the 2nd round. So you want teams to do it the correct way and not by tanking, which is just an overall L for the sport and should be just an overall L for the franchise. But some teams don't take it that way. The MLB has a deep pool of draft picks, and there's like 6 affiliates per teams to still make it to the majors. It's by far the easiest draft to bust in, as players can still be drafted out of high school. The NBA has always had the best process to stop tanking, and that's because they only have 15 players on the team. And all the NBA has done was make tanking harder by implementing the new draft percentages. The draft lottery can change a franchise. Just ask New Orleans, who moved from the 9th best odds in the draft to the 1st overall pick. And we saw the Grizzlies move from the 7th to the 8th best odds to the 2nd overall pick last year. And obviously the Timberwolves won this year, who were in the top 4 at getting a chance at that 1%. But that last year was groundbreaking for the NBA and the future of just the draft in general. And that's clearly why they give the 14 worst teams in the league a chance at that top pick. The Cleveland Cavaliers getting 3 first picks in 4 years will be a thing of the past. And the draft lottery is exciting, and it's 100% unpredictable. In the past, there was a lot of questions about how realistic the draft lottery is, and now everything seems a little bit more transparent. But we want to take it to the next level. We want to really implement losing, like you have to lose multiple seasons to get that number 1 pick. We want you to be bad for a long time to really earn that number 1 pick, because it causes teams to play harder. It causes franchises to go all in on every single season. And it's just the best for sports and the best for fans. And we're all about sports trending upwards. If you didn't know that, definitely go back and check episode 1, the groundbreaking episodes of Pro Sports Take. And we just talk about how sports is just going to keep on inclining. I think the draft is a huge part of sports to continue to skyrocket and be one of the number 1 brands and the number 1 viewership of all things in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you've already seen some leagues take measures to try to prevent taking, whether it's the NBA introducing the new lottery odds or the MLB start to inflicting not necessarily punishments, but the new international bonuses for prospects and things like that. The NFL, kind of like you touched on, is near impossible to tank, but it's also the easiest. With only 16 games, all you have to do is really lose 14 of them, as opposed to NBA or MLB where you have to lose, many more. But taking into account multiple years really accomplishes what the draft is meant to do, and that's give the worst teams who need the picks the players that they need to be competitive again and even the league. So that's our take today. What would happen? It probably will take years, if not decades, for it to happen. But I think it's almost inevitable that we do see this new system based on not just one season, but multiple years to award a team with that top pick.
Yeah, and the 2000s have been just important to sports in general. Sports were kind of stoic in the 1990s and the 80s to really change. But over the last 20 years, you've seen a lot of things change in sports. And when you talk about franchise-changing players, that has to be built through the draft. So you want to make sure teams are actually losing and earning those picks to get groundbreaking players like Zion Williamson.
Absolutely. The draft is one of the most exciting events of the year, and this could be just something else to make it even more exciting. So lock it in. That's our take for the day, and you can find all Pro Sports takes on prosportsoutlook.com, or even better, if you're already subscribed to Pro Sports Outlook's YouTube channel.
And that wraps up this episode of Pro Sports Takes. And remember, we encourage everyone to go ahead and leave comments about the player or even the team you want us to discuss. Tweet us at PSO_sports or simply use the hashtag ProSportsTakes. And we'll continue to monitor what's hot so we can give it a spot on our future show.
So we'll see you next time.
Until next time.